He's
You opened for Bill Cosby.
I did open for Bill Cosby.
Rapist
He opened doors for Bill Cosby. He's like, ladies, there's a comedian here to see you.
As Bill's opening act,
Yes.
my job was to mix the drinks and to distract the ladies.
Bill Cosby was my idol. He raised me
Before or after the rape?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Okay.
When I first did comedy, I would do it in a sweater.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I would do it in a fucking old sweater, just like Bill Cosby, because I figured that's what being a comedian was. So it's like an 18-year-old fat kid sweating his balls off. Actually, I was pretty in shape because I was taking ripped fuel and shit.
There was a
working
thick
out.
sweater and a lot of roofies in Mike's pockets.
Yeah,
He was fucking
No, I
Bill
was
Cosby all the
taking
way.
fucking trucker steroids or something to get ripped.
It was weird though. Like when I opened for him, this is years ago, and he, I'm the worst person to open for Bill Cosby, and apparently he never has an opening act. But they were doing this festival in Quebec City, and I had just done the Comedy Store in LA, so they were like, "Do you want to open? Do you want to open for Cosby?" And I was like, "I'm not the right person to open." And they were like, "No, do it." And they kept on hassling me, and then they sent over a contract, and they gave me $5,000 to do 20 minutes.
Oh,
before
you say
Cosby.
yes. You say
so I
yes.
was like, "Fuck it," sign the contract, and then 2 hours later, they called back and they were like, "Yeah, I don't think you should open for Cosby." And I was like, "I fucking told you a million times." And they, Cosby's people called the festival and they told them, they were like, we want speakers in Cosby's dressing room, and we want to hear what Mike Ward says before Cosby goes on stage. And if he says anything offensive, Cosby can leave, and you guys still have to pay him. And they were paying him $100,000.
Wow.
So they were super nervous the whole day. But I had just done a thing for the Halifax Comedy Festival.
Yeah.
So I had 12 minutes of clean material, so I knew I could do it. And then, but the whole day they were really nervous. They kept on. They were like, "Are you sure you're okay?" And they're all these French guys. So I'd always tell them in French. I'd be like, "How do you say fist fuck in French? Is there a word for fist fuck? Because I need, that's my closing bit." And then I'd be like, "Just kidding, just." And then I did my thing. It went well. Cosby was fucking weird though. He
Really?
before the show, I had heard that there were rumors about him, not rape, but how he used to have a mistress in every city. Yeah. And then I had heard since he was getting older, instead of cheating on his wife, what he'd do is he'd eat whatever garbage food was in the city. So I asked them, I was like, what garbage Quebecois food did you get him? And they were like, "Oh, we got him. He wanted croissant and he wanted baguettes." And I was like, "Okay, he thinks we're in France." And they were like, no, he knows we're in Quebec. It's just Quebec has amazing croissant. And I was like, no. The croissant here or in Boston is the same thing, or fucking bread. It's the same here as in fucking Chicago. But they were like, "No, he knows." And then when I met him, they were like, "Okay, everyone has we had to wait in line, and then Cosby would ask you a question, and he'd always ask people. He'd be like, "Are you French or English?" And people would go, I'm French," and then he'd do jokes about France for he'd do crowd work. He'd be like, "Hey, you guys, blah blah blah, and you call it football, we call it soccer." And I was listening to him, and I was and then when he'd ask people, "Are you French or English?" and people would say English, they meant the language, and he'd do jokes about Prince Charles.
Well, this guy's lost his fucking mind.
I was like, I have to help him. So I told him when he asked me, he was like, "You French or English?" And I was like, "Look, I'm half French Canadian because we're in Canada, so I'm half French Canadian and half English Canadian, but it's Canada." And then he just looked at me and he was like, "I didn't ask for your life story." And then I was like, "Okay, fuck you, I'm French." And then he went on stage, did 40 minutes about France. and everyone thought he was garbage except for my father, that he's in his 80s, and he was like, he's
onto something.
He came up, he was doing good crowd work about France.
He's like, that Cosby kid's onto something. It was odd that he smelled of poutine and pussy, but he's onto something.